Today, we're opening up the playbook on psychological control. And just to be clear, our goal here isn't to teach you how to use these tools, not at all. It's to show you how they work so you can recognize them, resist them, and ultimately protect your own autonomy. So let's pull back the curtain and see how the architecture of control is really built. It so often starts with a simple, unnerving phrase just like this, one that just makes you pause and question everything. This is the entry point. It's the first tiny crack in the foundation of your own reality. And believe it or not, it's from this one small seed of doubt that an entire system of control can grow. So, what makes a person want to control someone else in the first place? What does their psychological blueprint actually look like? To really understand the tactics, we've got to start with the mindset that drives them. At the very core of many manipulative personalities, psychologists have found this cluster of traits they call the dark triad. It's this potent combination of three distinct yet overlapping personality styles, and they're all defined by their pretty malevolent qualities. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because it's the combination of these traits that's so powerful. Think of it like this. Narcissism provides the ego-driven motive. Machiavellianism brings the strategic, amoral playbook. And psychopathy adds that cold, callous remorselessness you need to execute the plan without a second thought. You put them all together, and you have a personality that's perfectly engineered for exploitation. Okay, so that's the mindset. Now let's look at the primary weapon it uses in a one-on-one setting. How does a manipulator systematically take apart something as fundamental as a person's own sense of reality? How is that even possible? The term for this is gaslighting. It actually comes from a play from 1938 where a husband secretly dims the gas lights in his house, and then, when his wife notices, he just denies it over and over, convincing her she's going insane. And that right there is the key. Gaslighting isn't just telling a lie. A single lie is just deception. A sustained campaign of distortion, that's gaslighting. And you can see how it escalates. It starts with simple denial of facts. That never happened. Then it moves on to rewriting your memory of what happened. That's not what you said. After that, your own emotional reactions are invalidated. You're being too sensitive. And in the final, twisted step, the blame for the manipulator's behavior is shifted entirely onto you. The person being gaslit often ends up apologizing for things they never even did. So why on earth is this so effective? Well, because our brains are literally wired for social reality checking. We instinctively look to the people we trust to confirm that what we're experiencing is real. Gaslighting hijacks that instinct. When someone you trust repeatedly tells you that what you saw, what you heard, and what you felt is just plain wrong, your brain just doesn't know what to do. The manipulator is weaponizing your natural need for connection against you. Okay, let's zoom out for a minute. Beyond that intense personal attack of gaslighting, there are these broader, more scientific principles that are used to shape behavior, sometimes on a much larger scale. These are the tools of systematic influence. This all goes back to the foundational work of B.F. Skinner, and the idea is beautifully simple. You can shape behavior by controlling its consequences. It's the basic mechanic behind everything from training an animal to motivating employees, and it often works so gradually that the person being conditioned has no idea it's even happening. And this distinction is absolutely crucial. Reinforcement, whether it's giving a reward or taking away something unpleasant, is always about increasing a behavior. Punishment, whether it's adding something negative or taking away something positive, is always about decreasing it. By systematically applying these, a controller can slowly sculpt a person's actions without them ever realizing there's a system at play. But changing behavior isn't just about direct rewards and punishments. Some of the most powerful tools are way more subtle. They're the psychological shortcuts our own brains use every single day to make decisions. Psychologist Robert Cialdini famously called these the weapons of influence. And they're basically our brain's mental shortcuts. Social proof, that just means we follow the crowd. Authority, we tend to obey experts. Consistency, we feel this pressure to stick to our past decisions. So think about that. Manipulators don't have to create new weaknesses in you. They just have to find the shortcuts your brain is already using and turn them into pathways for their influence. So in this final section, we're going to see how all these tools, the manipulative mindset, the reality distortion, the principles of influence, how they're all combined to create the ultimate system of control, the high demand group, or what most of us would call a cult. A psychiatrist named Robert J. Lifton actually created the definitive framework for this by studying brainwashing techniques. And what he found was that these total control environments aren't random at all. They are meticulously constructed using a very specific set of psychological principles. The first and most important principle is something called milieu control. It's a fancy term that just means controlling the information and communication. You control what people see, hear, and read. You control who they can talk to. By building a wall around a person's mind, the group's narrative becomes the only one available. There's no outside world to compare it to. And you can see how this works in practice. It's not just about ideas, it's about logistics. Members are discouraged from talking to skeptical friends or family. They might have restricted internet access. These aren't just suggestions, they are the structural pillars of control. Next up, you control the language itself. Complex issues get boiled down into these simplistic black and white slogans. And these phrases aren't meant to explain anything. They're meant to end thought. They are, quite literally, thought terminating. I mean, really think about it. How do you argue with a phrase like, trust the process? You can't. It just dismisses your concern without ever addressing it. The language becomes a shield that protects the group's ideology from any real scrutiny. And finally, we get to the ultimate lock on the cage. The group claims the authority to decide who is good and who is evil, who has value and who doesn't. The world outside the group is painted as dangerous, corrupt, and just plain meaningless. So leaving isn't just a disagreement, it's presented as a step toward total spiritual or social annihilation. The fear of non-existence becomes the cage. So, wow, we've journeyed all the way from the internal mindset of a single manipulator to the intricate architecture of a completely controlled group. We've seen how reality can be bent, how behavior can be shaped, and how entire worlds can be built. Let's just recap the playbook one last time. What we've really laid out here is a step-by-step blueprint. It starts with that particular psychological profile. Then it moves to destabilize an individual's reality. From there, behavior is shaped with basic conditioning, and it's amplified by those subtle principles of persuasion. And finally, all those elements are scaled up to create a total all-encompassing social environment where the group's reality is the only one that matters. So after all this, why would we want to learn such a dark playbook? Well, because you cannot defend against a strategy you don't understand. Manipulation absolutely thrives in confusion and secrecy. By shining a light on these